Hello, everyone. This is John Crosby, and you're listening to the Vastcast. This is the first one. I have a lot more respect for talk people and talk radio people after trying to do this a few times. It's kind of difficult if you try and write everything out and script it before you start talking. It sounds like you're reading from a script, and if you just kind of wing it and you don't have any clue what you're going to say, you just end up kind of with a lot of and so I wrote some notes here. Let me turn the music down. The phone is ringing. I'm gone. So I wanted to just kind of go over a few things. Class schedule has changed. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's get into this here. I was thinking about a lot of things, and then here we go. I'll turn the mic on. I'm recording. I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about was how technology changes things and the way we do things. I remember back in 2000, I went to some web TV show, like a webisode. I remember it was like had something to do with Doritos. So I show up with everyone, and there's like this big Doritos banner, and they're like, yeah, you're on Doritos TV. And this week we have Vast. And I was like, how many, after it was done, I was like, how many people are watching this? And the journalist, the web journalist was like, oh, like 1 million hits. Yeah, I remember that's when everyone did things with hits, you know. I was like, well, how many people is that? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like 1 million people. I think it was just them, like, watching their own stuff like 1 million times in a row. So I could already tell that, you know, the old media was thinking, okay, we're gonna have these like TV shows online that millions of people watch just like TV, but it'll be on the internet. And I could already tell that wasn't what the internet was about. This was before, you know, social media and MySpace and Facebook and all that stuff. And I could already tell the future was that people would have their own TV channel and they would be blasting out whatever they wanted to do. That was a lot more interesting. People are generally just interested in themselves. That's just kind of the way it goes, unless you're totally some altruistic type person, which most people aren't. Most people just want to blast out their own stuff. If it's a picture of their cat, they'd rather focus on that than anything that's going on out there in the world. So, I mean, I don't want to sound negative. I think it's just kind of the way it works. I don't think it's this generation. Like people say, oh, this is the me generation. I think every generation is pretty much the me generation. I think you could go back to the times of the bubonic plague, and they were pretty much into their own thing, you know. So anyway, there's always that awkward phase where the technology comes out, but people are still thinking like it used to be. And I really saw that with this weird webisode thing with the Doritos and all that nonsense. And I feel like it's been happening a lot lately. I'm really excited about how all this technology gives me the opportunity to do things I wouldn't have been able to do before as an artist. And I find that we're doing a lot of things that are new. I don't want to say no one's ever done them before. I'm not sure who has. That's not really the point, like, oh, we're doing something no one's ever done. It's just that I feel like every week I'm doing something no one's done, or it's newish. And I think it's confusing people because they're like, why are you doing this way? And I guess I'm a little confused too, because it's hard to tell what has changed and what hasn't changed. Sometimes I feel like everyone wants to pretend it's like 1987, and bands it's just like everything is exactly the way it used to be. And that's kind of what people expect and what they want. And then when we do that, it just seems kind of ludicrous to do everything as if it's 1987. But then when we get away from that, it gets weird, and people are like, what are you doing with like the custom songs, or having fans vote on what songs make the next record, or doing the Vastcast? To me, these are all exciting things that you can do with the new technology that you wouldn't have been able to do in the old days. And I like it. I think that one thing that kind of drives me crazy, and maybe I should just let it go and not say anything and keep my mouth shut, is this kind of pity party people are playing for musicians these days. I guess I have a certain amount of pride, and it bothers me because I don't really want to be kind of dissed like that. I mean, I think that what people don't know, and what I really want to say, is that this is not the worst time to be a musician. I think the worst time to be a musician was probably the 90s for a lot of reasons. The way the system was back then, I can't really speak for what it was like in the 70s and 80s, but from the people who are older who've told me about it, it was a pretty good time. There was just so much going on that there was just... it was kind of hard to get into in the 70s and 80s from what I hear. It was very exclusive. You really did have to know people. So that every decade, has its challenges in anything, in any industry. But I think the 90s were the worst time because a lot of what was going on then was when labels signed artists, they would have them make an album, and then if they didn't like the album, they just wouldn't release it. And it happened all the time. I feel so thankful it didn't happen to me when I was on Elektra. I did 2 records with them, and instead of having me go through the process of making a 3rd album and then not releasing it, they just let me go. It happened to a lot of people I knew personally, and it's just horrendous to spend 6 to 9 months on an album and then not even have it get released. And the record company, because they're paying for it, they own your master, and so you've just put, these are songs about like friends that have died. There's songs, totally, you're just putting your heart, your soul, blood, sweat, and tears in this album, and then they're like, oh, we don't even want to release it. And by the way, you don't get to have it. It's just devastating. And this was before the computer technology made it easy to re-record the songs or something. It wasn't very affordable back then in the 90s. Like our first record was one of the first records done pretty much on a computer, completely, and it was still really expensive. So there wasn't really that much of an independent scene. There was no internet to get your message directly out to people, so you still had to print up CDs and put them out there. So how are you supposed to print up, if you're just like some kid, how are you supposed to print up 20 or 30,000 CDs to get them in stores, and then how would anybody know about you? I mean, it was just very difficult, and I wanted my music to get out there, so that's why I was looking for a record deal. I knew there was no way to really get it out there, and have the money to record an orchestra and all the things I did on the first record without some kind of financial support. And really what labels were, and they still kind of are, just banks. How in that movie Goodfellas, he says the mob, they're just the police for wise guys. Well, record companies are just like banks for jerks. They're banks for people that can't get loans from a regular bank. You can't show up with a tattoo of a scorpion on your neck at a bank and have them give you, money to record an orchestra. So that's basically how it was. And the system was there, was good in some ways because there was record stores and all that stuff. But it was really horrendous. I mean, you're towards the end of that era. I mean, I think they were only releasing like 3 out of 10 artists they were signing. I knew producers who would work with artists, and then the record didn't even come out. It's awful. Just complete waste of time. I mean, at least now with the internet, every single thing that I record will get out there. It will just be available. People can hear it, and that's a really wonderful feeling. And that's just one of the examples of why it's great now versus the old days. There are certain things these days that aren't as good. Certain things that concern me or confuse me. And but it's always changing, and so it's just a matter of going, okay, what do we need to do, or what should we do? What works best for me as an artist? What works best for people who want to hear my music? So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, just to let people know that they don't really need to pity musicians these days. They just really, I think that what I really feel strongly about, and I also want to say, is that this technology and the internet and computers is radically changing everything, every field, like every job. Unless you're a barber or like a hair cutter, like you're using a computer. It's like you go to the dentist and they're looking at a computer screen. You're like, hey, my teeth are right here. Why are you looking at this screen? I just can't believe how many people have jobs where they sit in front of a computer all day. Graphic designers, every job almost you can think of, you know. So it's changed everything, and it's really changed the way we view material and art and content and all those things in general. That was one of the reasons I really wanted to. I started thinking many years ago about. I originally called it the Serenade series. My idea was, I was thinking, well, with all these downloads and all this digital content, quote unquote. Hate the word content. I mean, what does that word mean? Everything's fucking content. Jupiter is content. You know, everything's a person's content. You know, I remember like in 7th grade, my English teacher told me, don't use the word thing. Everything's a thing. Just say what it is. You know, you didn't eat a thing. Did you eat turkey or what, you know? So anyway, I digress. I'll do that a lot from time to time. And where was I? So, you know, with all this kind of, I don't want to say it's meaningless, but it's just, I don't want to call it noise, but let's just call it what it is. There's just a lot of this stuff coming at you from the internet. I wanted to do something kind of special and different. So I thought, well, what if I made a CD, like a one-of-a-kind CD? And the idea originally that I had was I would just record whatever I felt like that day, put it on a CD, do some handmade art for it, and go, here it is. It's like this one-of-a-kind little art piece. Like, and I was going to try and do it like in some kind of art gallery. Like, pretend like I'm some kind of fine artist for a day. Sound like a lot of fun. And I actually talked to some people that were in the art world, and they said, oh, that's a good idea. You should do it. And I'm like, it's just a little weird. So this was back 2006, 7, 8. And then I started to think about it. A lot of people were doing the fundraisers, and I thought, well, what if I did a custom song for somebody? But I did it like a request. But instead of them asking me to play Old MacDonald or Imagine or some cover, I do my own music. It still seems pretty cool. So I did it, and it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it was something that I needed to do because I feel that it's pushed me in really good directions. It's pushed me to go back and play songs in the studio I normally wouldn't play, like this song, like I've been talking over, Song Without a Name. I wouldn't normally wake up and go, today I'm going to do an acoustic version of this song. And I think it sounds cool. I was surprised. So that's what I'm doing right now. There's new music coming next week, but I didn't want to wait another week to do this thing because I knew if I did, then I'll never get around to doing it. And I just wanted to start it today, September 1. It's just time to start something new. So I appreciate you guys listening, and guys and gals and everything in between. Go to realvast.com if you want to write me and tell me how much this sucks and I should never do it again. Thank you. Over and out. Bye-bye.